Hi guys, thank you so much for being here. So today I want to talk about creativity and how we can foster our creative lives. Now I'm sure there are tons of things we can do to feed our creativity on a day-to-day basis, but for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to focus on three specific things that are really important, and I think sometimes they're overlooked when we talk about creativity. So in popular culture, I think there is a sense of there being a creative genius type of person who is, sitting at their easel, and then all of a sudden, like kind of a tornado, they get this like lightning strike of inspiration, and then they paint a masterpiece, and they're just all in a frenzy, and they just go nonstop painting for 3 days, and then that's it. And I've seen this depiction of creativity in many different forms, whether it's movies or books, and I just think that it is not a true depiction of creativity and the creative life. So the number one thing that feeds our creativity is work. It's just plain good old-fashioned work, and work some more. There's no substitute for hard work. It's just a matter of showing up every single day, whether we feel like it or not, whether we are inspired or not, whether we think, wow, I'm just gonna make something really awesome today or not. It is making a practice of our creativity. And I think that often gets overlooked, but there is a quote, and I'm not sure who said it, but it goes something like this. I only work when creativity strikes me, and thankfully it strikes me when I sit down to work every morning at 9 o'clock, or something like that. But the point of the quote is that inspiration finds us when we are working. We have to just work and work and work and work, and then inspiration will find us while we are working. Now, I'm not saying become a workaholic, because that's not true at all. But what I'm saying is that we have to set aside time every day or every other day to feed our creativity, to practice our craft, whatever that might be, whether it's playing the piano, writing, painting, whatever creative pursuits you might be doing. So the second aspect of feeding our creative lives is let go of perfectionism. Perfectionism/fear, and I did a video just a little while ago about how perfectionism has gotta go. But perfectionism is the very opposite of creativity. In order for us to be creative, we have to be willing to fail. We have to be willing to make bad art, and make lots and lots and lots of bad art. We can't just expect that for all of our art to be reasonable or decent even. People work all their lives to maybe get one or two pieces that they're, known for, that they're really happy with. So perfectionism is the very opposite of creativity. It actually depletes us of our creative energy. And in order for us to tackle perfectionism, is a very deep process, because we have to confront our belief systems. Perfectionism is another word for fear, and Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this in her book Big Magic, and I think even in her now famous TED Talk. And I totally agree with that. Perfectionism is just a fancy way of saying fear. And what are we afraid of? We are afraid of, being laughed at, being criticized, being called a fraud. Like, well, who are you to think that you're an artist? Who are you to think that you're a writer? You don't even know what you're doing, et cetera, et cetera. And then it kind of snowballs into, well, nobody's ever gonna love me, and everybody's gonna laugh at me and I'm gonna be ostracized, and just it can take on a life of its own. But I know it sounds really comical, but it's really sad because there are so many artists, writers, composers, I could go on and on and on, so many creative people throughout history that have given in to perfectionism and fear of what other people might think, of criticism, that they have stopped doing their craft. They have stopped writing and painting and making beautiful things, or making ugly things, or just painting. So that is a big one. It's a deep held fear. It's a deep held belief that if we are not perfect, we won't be accepted, loved, appreciated, admired, validated. All of those aspects go into our creative lives, and I just feel like it's really important to talk about those things and to confront those things within ourselves, to become friends with our inner critic, to ask our inner critic, hey, what do you have to teach me? Why are you here? And to befriend our inner critic, and then still make our art. But now we have our inner critic that we are in conversation with, that we can say, wow, that is really interesting. But I don't think that, I'm not going to let that determine whether I make my art or not. And I think one of the things for me is I've had to confront so many beliefs of mine that I thought about art that I don't know where they even came from. They're not even true. They don't serve me. They're not valid, but yet I let them control me for so long. I'll give you an example. So for the longest time, I was really scared to use color. Now I'm 55 years old. So, this was like 30 years ago. I was so scared of using color in my art. Now, why was I scared of using color in my art? It's not like if I used a lot of color in my art, like somebody was gonna die, or I was, it's such a small thing. Like it's inconsequential to anybody what I do in my art. But for some reason, I had this belief, I guess, that I just couldn't use too much color in my art. And I had to, first of all, become aware that I had this belief and it was affecting my art. And then second of all, I had to confront that belief. And thankfully, I had a teacher slash mentor at the time who became a friend of mine, who really encouraged me to use color. And she saw things in my art that I did not. And so she really encouraged me to pursue my love of color. But these are all things that we as artists and creative beings have to kind of come into conversation with, bring them up to the surface so they're not there lurking in the shadows dictating what we can and cannot do, because all of those fears will stifle our creativity. Now, the third thing is to have a beginner's mind. In Buddhism, there is a quote that goes something like this: in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. And I love that quote because it's so true. It is absolutely true, never more so than when it is applied to our creativity, because we have to approach our creativity and our creative lives and our art, whatever form that might take, with a sense of being a beginner. Because when you're a beginner, you are in a frame of there's so many things, but the number one thing that comes to me is you are in a sense, you're humble. You are in a state of being humble. I can make mistakes. I am here to learn. I am here to experiment, to see what happens. I am here to explore the possibilities, to play, to have fun. those are all things that I associate with a beginner's mind. So in the expert's mind, there is, to me, it's like a box. And so your creativity is just all stifled with a box of rules, because that's what being an expert is really. It's all these rules that you have to follow. Now you have to know the rules to in order to break them. So I'm not saying like, don't learn about the rules. Of course, learn about, drawing and color theory. All of those things are important. And then after that, unlearn them. So it's a process of learning the things we need to learn, but then also there's a process of unlearning it. Because, like Picasso, there's a famous quote that he said, um, I learned how to paint like a master by the age of, I think for him it was like 15, and I'm not even kidding. But he said, I learned how to paint like a master by the age of 15 or 20, but it took me a lifetime to learn how to paint like a child. And what he was saying is he had to, excuse me, he had to learn all these skills, and then he had to go through a process of unlearning all of these skills, and he entered into the mind of a child, which is a beginner's mind. So those are the three things that I practice on a daily basis. I'm very conscious of it. I really try to incorporate that into my everyday life. So the first thing is just having a creative practice and work, 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 work. The second thing is letting go of fear slash perfectionism and confronting all of those beliefs, the whole belief system that we have that gives root to some of those fears and beliefs, and then to tackle those. And the third thing is to have a beginner's mind. So I hope this has been helpful in even some small way. And thank you so much for watching the video to the end, and we'll see you next time. Okay, bye.